Good morning and welcome to this big talk about small talk with my friend Mindy Jones. Welcome, Mindy. I am so excited to have you here.
Good morning. I'm so grateful for this platform where we can be best friends and be geographically distant.
I know we do a good job of that. I think we are
I
virtual
know.
BFFs, and then when we see each other, or when we can, we see each other. For
That's
those of
right.
you that don't know, Mindy Jones is a friend of mine because we met through being exactly what to say certified guides. So you can see on her title right there, she's an exactly what to say certified guide. As am I. We spend a lot of time actually in New York together. And I have come to know Mindy as somebody who I just love and adore for so many reasons. The thing that probably stood out first to me, because we're exactly what to say guides, is her ability to communicate so beautifully. And I just so appreciate how you use your words and how it always connects people. Like that's always your intention. And so, amongst the many, many things that she does and who she is in this world, that's what really stood out to me and drew me to her. And she's phenomenal at that. So, thank you for being here with us, Mindy.
Oh, geez. I'm excited to talk about this conversation because I think if there's one thing that is universally difficult for people, it's this idea of quote unquote small talk. And I
Mhm.
think we tend to sabotage ourselves before it even gets started by calling it small talk. But I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I love even how you said the other day, you were like, yeah, it's a big talk about small talk. I'm like, even that is such a cool play on it because you're right. The thing that stood out to me, so I recently heard Mindy on the Exactly podcast, the Exactly show, YouTube, actually, YouTube channel. And she did a little presentation on small talk. And listen, anybody who's here with us knows small talk is awkward for all of us. It's uncomfortable for
Hmm.
all of us because it
Hmm.
feels like limiting and it feels intimidating at times because you have, I don't know, either somewhere else to be or some intention with where you are. And so I just really liked a couple of the things that you said just in reframing how to think about it. So I think that's where you were starting to go. What are some of the things we need to do to approach small talk differently?
So, first of all, you're right. I think we call it small talk because we think it's sort of insignificant, right? I think it's kind of like what we look at as maybe the fluff in between the actual conversation, or maybe when you're going to be at a place where you don't really know anybody, you think you have to have some form of niceties, or and anything we put into a box that sounds anything like what I just described feels like there's no value to it, right? It just literally feels like the packaging of whatever it is that you really want to talk about. And if that's how you view this extra piece of conversation, you don't have a goal for it. There's no intention for it. Your gut feeling is that it's likely not going to lead you anywhere. It's kind of like the problem people have with remembering people's names. It's because often when they meet people and they hear you tell them their name, they don't expect to ever see you again. So they don't reserve space in their brain, right, to remember what it is that you're saying. And I
Mhm.
think the same is true for small talk. You think that it's sort of just your pathway to get to wherever, but that's the key. It is your pathway to get to wherever. I tell this story often about how I've trained myself so well to look at the world around me as full of opportunity, right? And the pathway to get to the opportunity is this big talk, the conversation opener, the conversation starter, the what's actually going to get me into conversation with somebody else. And sometimes when I get into an elevator between speaking or jobs or train, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm like, please, no one get into this elevator because I have trained myself to see opportunity everywhere. And so sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to talk right now. And if somebody comes into the elevator, I'm going to have to engage with them because I don't want to leave it on the table, you know?
Yep.
And sometimes I'll just be sitting in the elevator, like, please don't, please don't. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, ding. I'm like, dang it. And then and then I think for a minute, I'm like, okay, Mindy, it's okay. It's your moment off. You don't have to. And then, I kind of stand there and person's inside. I'm like thinking, but what if this is the next person who's going to be the major donor for the nonprofit organization that I run? What if this is the person who's going to introduce me to my future best friend? What if this is and I just start to think of like how big the opportunity behind this proverbial door is. And then I have to be like, hey, how's it going? And now it's weird because it's like 30 seconds later or a minute later, you know? And so I've had enough of those experiences that I think small talk is big and I'm going to figure out how to do it. Even someone who has self proclaimed social anxiety, I'm
Mhm.
going to figure out the structure that it takes for me to feel comfortable in the moments that matter most. And I think that's what I've tried to help people with.
I love how you said that was so yes to the elevator thing to the anything. It's like, God, can I just have a couple of minutes to myself because
Mhm.
you said something so phenomenal. And this is how I see it too, but I hadn't described it in the same way. There's opportunity everywhere. And to me, it's like that small talk, that intro, that first time you're speaking to somebody is the portal to getting to those because they're everywhere. They're just invisible. And like you said, it's the pathway. And I think sometimes people cut themselves off because, well, for many reasons. But I've heard people say, well, there's not, that person can't do anything for me, or they're, I only work with women and it's a guy. And so, but like he has sisters and a mom and right. It's like every conversation holds opportunity.
And I don't know if it's because they don't believe there's opportunity. I think sometimes that can be it. It can be a limiting belief of just what opportunity is available out there. But I
Mhm.
also think it's that they are stressed in unstructured environments. And so, for example, when you gain clarity about who you work with, for example, so like you gave the example, I only work with women. If you have clarity around who you work with, you only work with women, you become more comfortable in that space. But why
Mhm.
do you become more comfortable in that space? Because you've practiced it, you've done it, you've shown up in that way, you've figured out what that audience needs, you're able to communicate better with that group. So then when you're outside of that space, I don't think you have the same level of confidence and clarity in what your role is supposed to be in there. And so, what I think happens to a lot of people is that anxiety, or whatever you might call it, that creates too small of thinking, right?
Mhm.
That whether it's pressure to perform, or anxiety, or whatever it might be, or unfamiliarity. I
Mhm.
think what happens then is that you're not open to exploring the opportunity. So it's almost like you can't see where things are headed because you feel so much pressure to get to a specific outcome. So one of the ways that I combat that, and I use words like anxiety because that's how it feels to me. That's what I feel when I'm in uncomfortable situations, or situations where maybe I don't feel prepared, or I don't feel confident, or I don't know how to show up, or I'm second guessing myself, or really I feel that need to perform, right? Like I'm trying to interview for a job, or get people to like me, or whatever you might relate to as a person. But what I've found helps me is to have just enough structure in those environments so that I am very clear, right? So I don't have to know all the people in the room in order to have a structure. So for me, the structure is like a simple ask of myself ahead of going into a space, which is, what is it that I want to talk about today? What am I excited to talk about today? What's one thing that I want to learn today? We often talk about goal setting and networking in terms of like, what's one thing you want to get out of it? Like, I want to meet one new partner, or I want to give 3 business cards, or I want to explore this idea, right? It could be a variety of different things, but I like to frame it in, what do I want to get out of it? What do I want to learn? What do I want to learn about somebody else? What do I want to learn about myself? What's really exciting me right now to talk about? What's giving me that confidence? Because if I have just enough structure walking into the room, then I have a direction in which I'm headed with my small talk. And I would just call that something like strategic curiosity, or intentional speaking, right? Being on purpose, right? Just enough structure so that it isn't random. And often we'll talk about moments being random, like, I randomly met this person or I randomly did this. But I'm a believer of situations happen because ultimately they are leading to some other situation in life. And I think when you look at things as being very interconnected, you see your role in these quote unquote random moments very clearly. So you're going into a networking situation, you're going to a dinner, you're going to a concert, you're going to a workshop. There is a 100% chance you will meet somebody there that you don't know. So that is not random. Going into it, you will meet someone you don't know. Could you create just enough structure before you go into that environment so that you aren't so uncomfortable with opening conversations with people?
Got it. So having some structure, some intention around what's exciting you, what you want to learn about, what you want to talk about gives you some starting points when you're jumping into these conversations.
Yeah, and I think being able to assemble a handful of, we call them OFQs, right? In the work that we do with exactly what to say, but it's the idea of a friendly opening, a mutually agreeable fact, and then some type of easy to answer question. And you can play around with those a little bit before you go into a networking situation and kind of find the ones that work for you. A script is going to be your least helpful method of preparation for a networking event because whoever you meet did not practice the same script as you did. And if you have any level of social anxiety, you're going to, again, feel that pressure to perform versus an OFQ methodology, which is like come up with a few openers. So it could be as simple as, hey, my name's Mindy. I run a business right around the corner, right? Think of the context of what it is that you're doing there. I'm lucky enough to run 3 different lines of businesses. And so when I go into a networking event, before I walk in, I get to decide which lens do I want to have on right before I walk into that space to kind of give me some comfort and structure. Do I want to lead in as, running a real estate company? Do I want to lead in into the work that we're doing in the nonprofit sector? The conversation will go wherever it goes, but feeling confident and comfortable with the lens in which I enter this space helps me to feel like I can kind of pick up anywhere, right? Because I'm the expert in me. What I want to find out is what other people are the expert in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that opening, hey, I'm Mindy, I run a business around the corner versus, hey, I'm Mindy, we're working on this really cool project and I'm excited to hear what everybody else is working on today. Or, hey, I'm Mindy, I'm so curious about what brought you here today. Like I had to fit this in between 20, 30, 40 other things. And I'm just so curious, like, what made you decide that like this is the thing that you're going to do today? So you have lots of different directions that you can take it in. But planning ahead of time a few of those OFQs, I think allows you to have, again, just enough structure to feel confident opening up new conversations with people.
I love that because we know the worst time to think about what you're going to say is the moment you're saying it. So if you're hearing Mindy, she's suggesting put a little intention, not a whole homework assignment, but a little intention to going in. Hey, what are some things that I can have prepared to say that will ignite a conversation different than what normally takes place at, for example, a networking event, which would be my next question. What happens, or how can I ask this? Because I heard you talking about it on the YouTube video and I thought it was so good. Mm-hmm. When somebody says, so what do you do? Which is the typical, right? Like you go to a network, the first question, so what do you do? Yeah. And I think a lot of people just automatically go through the motions and don't even really listen to what the other person is saying, or they do and they don't have any questions. But you described it really well. And I want everybody to hear this because I think we all fall into this trap.
we fall into the trap, but we also ask that question, right? And I think I said before, I use this term strategic curiosity, and that just means being curious with intention or with purpose
Mhm.
versus being lazy with our words. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we're lazy with our words. And this goes back to not realizing the power of our words or the potential outcome of asking really good questions, but we get into these environments, we haven't put any prep work in. We'll watch a video about networking, we'll Google how to network, we'll ask ChatGPT how to network, like we'll do all of that, but we won't actually prepare ourselves to be in that situation. And
Mhm.
then we show up, we feel the same things we've always felt. We don't have our handful of really great questions that we feel we would open up to. And so we just default to stuff that we've heard before, which is like, what do you do? Which is the least curious question that
Yeah.
we could ever ask somebody. And the reason is, if you ask somebody what they do, they are conditioned to give you like a resume. And
Mhm.
so what they read back to you, you typically won't even understand, right? Like,
Mhm.
unless you're a financial planner, if I regurgitate to you what my resume says that I do as a great financial planner, and you don't need one at the moment, you're not one and you don't need one, you don't have any other questions to ask at that point. So you've just shut the door. Or for me in real estate, if someone's like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a real estate agent, they're conditioned to ask me one thing. Do you know what that is? If I
No.
said, you asked me what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a real estate agent, what would you ask me?
How long have you done that?
Yeah, someone might ask me how long, I've been in the industry, which still doesn't tell you anything about what I do, what's important, or what we might connect on, right? Often people will ask me, how's the market? I'll be
Mm,
like, oh, you're in real estate. How's the market? Which is akin to how's the weather? Like, they don't really care. They just
right.
don't know what else to ask me. So, in all of these situations, the what do you do truly does close doors instead of open them.
Yeah.
So, I try to avoid asking the question, what do you do? And asking people things like, you can add in a little layer of curiosity to the same question and have a dramatic difference, right? I think
Mm,
that's the other thing I want to say. You don't have to overhaul your personality to be good at small talk or big talk. This isn't about suddenly being bubbly or a socialite or outgoing, or like, you don't need to change who you are, but we
mhm.
can make small tweaks to the words that we use that makes you more efficient when you show up. And so instead of asking what do you do, you could add a little layer of curiosity and say, hey, so what got you into the line of work that you're in today?
Mm,
Or, hey, what keeps you in the line of work today? Or what draws you to the line of work today? Or what kind of people do you help in the work that you do? They ultimately will respond by saying, oh, well, I'm a X,
mhm.
right? But the focus of the answer is going to be more in line with what your question is, which is, who are the people that you serve and what are the problems that you solve for them? And that's the same way that I would answer a question of what do you do, because I don't want to get stuck in that trap. And so when someone asks me, what do I do? Then I can respond by asking them a question in turn to try to find out about how we might relate to each other. So that
Mhm.
before I throw up a bunch of information on them that they don't care about, maybe
Right.
I find something that we have in common. Or maybe I take the conversation in a completely different direction, knowing that their what do you do question was their meager attempt at small talk,
Mhm.
right? I think that's the power we have when we ask questions. We get to control the conversation. And so if someone asks a question like, what do you do? We can either go all in and say, okay, you're in charge of this conversation. You asked, what do you do? So now I'm just going to go all into that, even though I know I'm probably going to end up at a dead end,
Mhm.
right? Or I can say, okay, great jumping off point. I'm going to challenge myself to make this conversation a little more interesting, right? So they say, what do you do? And I say, well, you know how when you move to a new area and it's kind of difficult to get settled in and know where to find the right doctor and know which community might be best for you and have to find schools for your kids, and even a networking place like this, like, how did you find a place like this? You've lived here. How did you find a place? Now we're in a conversation about
Mhm.
something else. And maybe they double back and get back to what we're talking about and
Mhm.
ask me again about what I do. Or
Mhm.
maybe we head off in another direction. Or maybe I interject, when we're talking about how they found networking, I say something like, oh, that's such a great way to find networking events. My clients, because I'm in real estate, so my clients are often relocating, and I know that they have to find jobs. And I never thought about finding a networking event the way that you just did.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've complimented them, right? They've done something that we were curious about. We asked enough questions. We still ultimately answered their question about what it is that you do, but we did it in a context that they can relate to, which I could only get by finding out something else about them and earning that context. I was ultimately able to loop around and be strategic about how I interjected what it was that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have many choices in which direction to take the conversation in. So some of the pressure is off to perform because now what I've done is I've masterfully created a conversation that has many different openings.
Mm-hmm. You, I love how you said that too, because so I did this last week at a networking event, and it's funny because, it's you're contextualizing what you're about to say instead of just giving like a standard label, right? But I find that people want labels so badly that after we
Mhm.
did have that little back and forth, he was like, "So you're a sales coach." Like he
Uh-huh.
still needed to bring it back to at least put like a bow on it and be like, okay, so this is a title or this is a label. Because I feel that people do want to label things, right? So that, and I think it's more of a making sure that they understand or that they know what it is that we've just said. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends. If you're trying to just bait them, like if you're just doing an exercise in how do I tell people what I do without telling people what I do, right? It's like very Instagram like comment, but it's like if you're just trying to play a game with somebody, like you can't fake curiosity. And I think that's something that we talk a lot about in terms of networking with purpose. A purpose has to be real. Like you can't manufacture paying attention, being purposeful, or being curious. Those things you have to be authentic. Like if you're not authentic, people can see it and feel it and hear it. And
yep.
so if you're just doing an exercise in how do I tell somebody what it is that I do without going straight to the punch, how do I add 3, 4, 5 steps just for the purpose of adding 3, 4, 5 steps, then ultimately you're going to get to a place where someone's just like, okay,
Right.
right? Versus if your goal is to get at a deeper level of conversation with somebody, and what you're trying to do is build connection first, you have to you have to have some level of emotional intelligence, right? To watch how they're engaging with you. And I think that if at some point you feel like maybe you've tried a few different routes and you're not finding that show me that you know me button, right? You're not finding that relatability and it's starting to feel like you're just kind of trying different avenues, then I think that that's a good place to interject whatever makes you most comfortable in a situation. And for some people, that's humor, right? So they say something, for example, like, oh, so you're a sales coach? And you're like, well, yeah, but like, that's no fun. And also, if someone told me that they were a sales coach, I'd be like, I still have no idea what you do. Like, I do so many different things in one day, and I'm sure the same is for you. I mean, what three things do you remember about what you did last week?
Right.
Right.
Oh,
And so now you have the ability to kind of like reopen up that conversation. And so
yep.
I think when you think about your structure is a little bit of like a goal. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to get out of it? So what do you want to come with? What do you want to leave with? Right. What are a few OFQs you can kind of lean on that will give you some, easy openers, a few mutually agreeable facts? We're both going to the same floor. We both came here to today's networking event. We're both local business owners. We're both looking for more opportunities, whatever that might be. And then some easy to answer questions. What got you most excited about coming here? Is there someone here in particular that you're looking to meet? Do you
Mhm.
have like a list of things you're trying to get out of today? I'm always curious how other people prep to get into networking events. Did you have any like big goals that you were trying to accomplish today? Right? You set up a few of those for yourself. Then I
Mhm.
think the other part of the structure is like, what do you lean on when things get awkward? Because
Mm.
it's gonna happen, right? You're gonna come across people like what you're mentioning, but also like, what about the ones that just go on and on and on and on and on? right? Like you meet someone like me, I talk too much, right? So like you go into a networking event, you ask some questions, and they're just like da 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 da. You don't get an edge in, edge a word in edgewise. And then what happens is you start to let them be in control. I don't know if you've ever been in this situation before, but they're talking too much. And it almost feels like too much work and strategy to figure out how to get out of the conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like, in your head, I've got 10 more minutes of this free networking event. I came with goals because I did my work ahead of time. I know I need to talk to someone. I've been totally taken over by this person who I kind of did my thing with already. I'm not too interested in anymore, right? And I have a goal. So, like, I want to meet more other people. But it feels like it's going to take an act of God to get me out of this conversation. And so, what do you do instead? You just kind of give up, right?
Yeah.
And they do something, and then you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. So, like, does that happen a lot? And you get lazy with your words just to kind of keep them talking because it's like, what else do I do, right? So
Right.
the other thing to prepare is, what do you do when it gets awkward? Maybe humor, whatever. But also, how do you transition into another conversation? Because I
Mhm.
think that's a big one.
Tell us, do you have
Um,
a secret?
yeah, I mean, for me, I know, right? Because we're all in that situation. I think for me, I typically say something like, you know what, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time. Like, you've been so open and so transparent and so helpful in blank, right? Sharing your journey, talking about your challenges, whatever it is that, they've done for you in that time. When I came into this networking event, I had a goal of being able to have deep conversations with 3 people today. And I just want to thank you so much because you not only checked off the box of the first one, but you made me feel so confident walking into my second and my third conversation. And I just want to thank you so much for that. I know I've only got 10 minutes and I'm going to check these boxes off. And I just want to thank you so much. Like,
Love that.
gratitude is such a gift
Yeah.
for yourself, for confidence for yourself, but
Yep.
also for other people. You make them feel seen, you make them feel heard. You're grateful they took the time to talk to you, right? Speak to your little self who had no friends, speaking to myself. Like,
Yeah.
these are the moments we wished for, right? That people would talk to us. Don't take it for granted. Be grateful, thank them, be gracious, and move on. Like,
Yep.
you're still good. You're still in charge of your life?
That's I love it. You're still in charge of your life.
Yes,
But
you're still
that's
in
so
charge.
good. It's like something as simple as a thank you so much for this conversation. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed getting to know you. When I came here, as you know, I had a goal of connecting with 3
Yes.
people on a deeper level, and thank you so much for being one of them, and you've given me confidence now in my next 2 conversations. AKA,
Yes.
bye, this is over.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah. I have a 6-year-old, as anyone who ever sees me online knows. And one of the most important things to me in raising him is to see what it looks like to live a life on purpose.
Mm,
And it doesn't mean I figured it out, trust me. But one of the things that's so important is that the words that we use, they really matter, right? We've heard people say before, your words are hurting or helping, there's no neutral. And I really try to instill that in him. And I believe that if you're going to use your words, there is always an opportunity to either build a relationship, bridge a relationship, leave an impression,
mm,
take something away with you. Like, there's always a chance for you to be able to do that.
mhm.
And I think if we take a moment to reflect, there are many parts in our lives that make us nervous, anxious, uncomfortable, feel unprepared, whatever that might be. It could be as simple as a family dinner, going on vacation with people that you don't know, or being intentional about an elevator conversation that you don't necessarily have to have, right?
Right.
But in all of these, you can make small adjustments
Mm.
to not only how you show up, but the words that you use in the moment and the gratitude that you show for those relationships and conversations that can completely open up the opportunity in any networking event that you previously felt afraid of, scared of, or intimidated by.
Yeah. I feel like this was a little bit of a curveball that I did not expect to walk away from a conversation about small talk with the idea of, oh my God,
Yeah.
let me be grateful. Let me
Mm-hmm.
be grateful for small talk. The very thing that we try to avoid, or, you know, we feel, it's like, I'm hearing you loud and clear. Like, switch how you're looking at it, how you
Mm-hmm.
approach it, right? With some tactical steps of like a framework and being intentional about it. But also, how are you thinking about it? How are you viewing it? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
really, truly opportunity everywhere. And this is your pathway to get there. So be grateful for it.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Mindy, you're amazing. And I want people to see more of you online and all of your fun stories with you and Nico and everything else that you do. Mindy's so, like, you want to talk about somebody that gives back to her community and does amazing work. She's got a nonprofit arm. She's got a real estate brokerage. You've got a corporate, I don't know how you would describe it, corporate training line of your business. And I want people to be able to follow you so that they can get more of you. Where would that be?
Yeah, probably Instagram is the best way. I have kind of, all of my businesses have their own places that you can find things, but I think Instagram just gives you a little window into who I am and what's important to me. And we were talking a little bit before we jumped on today about, how you show up online, right? Which is essentially an electronic version of networking. And the beauty of having an online image or profile is that you get to dip into all of the different areas of space that are important to you. And often in structured networking events, you only have a few minutes to let people see how multifaceted you are. And whether you own 3 businesses and have kids and like whatever it is, you don't have to have any of those things to be multifaceted, right? You're a human and there's so many parts to display of you. And so I think, the benefit of social is you get to weave in all of those different buckets so that no matter what time of day you pop onto my Instagram and you'll get a little flavor of all of those things.
I love it. You're very fun to follow and watch online. What is your Instagram?
It's Mindy E. Jones.
Mindy E. Jones. Okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
type it here so everybody.
Hopefully that's me. Is that
Hopefully
me?
that's it. Love Mindy E. Jones on Instagram. Follow.
If not, it'll be somebody. So
Yeah, somebody will get a new
give
follower.
her a follow.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mindy, for this. Always thank you for our conversations. I just learned so much from you, and I appreciate your view on things and how much that helps me change my perspective and how I see things. Like I said, walking away from a talk about small talk, I did not expect gratitude to be my dominant intention now when going into those conversations, but that's exactly what it is. And now it's an easy way to get out of those conversations too, by expressing gratitude for that time spent with that person.
I want to hear what everybody's tips are, right? Like, I think we can all learn from each other. That's probably the last piece I'll tell you is like networking truly is a gateway into community. And I think community is something that allows all of us to truly feel connected. And the next time you're trying to go have a conversation, don't worry about trying to get a job or performing. You're just trying to make a connection, right? You're just trying to get in community with people.
Yeah.
And so hearing from the community will be beneficial for us all.
Yeah, I listen, whoever's here with us, please, if you were live, leave your comments. What is one of your best tips on how to establish connection? Because I think Mindy just left us with a gold nugget that maybe didn't even get the airtime that it deserved, but really making connection the goal of any conversation, not let me get a job or let me get a new client, which I think a lot of people go in and that's why they don't like small talk because they're so focused on their goal of let me get instead of how can I establish relatability? How can I
That's
connect
right.
with this person? And I think that's a beautiful goal to have for every conversation, along with the gratitude. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
thank you so
Thanks
much.
for
Looking
chatting.
forward to reading any comments that we get about like some of the tips that others have. And I hope everybody heard all the gold nuggets that Mindy just shared, and that we all know how to approach our small talk conversations in a very big way. Awesome. Thank you, Mindy.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Maybe.